Buddy, how are you? Thanks for tuning in. This is Tom McCaffrey. Before I start, please subscribe to this channel and rate and review, or just rate or like the video. It's that simple. I think down there you just have to like it if you like it, and if you don't like it, then still like it. Just kidding. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a few things. The main thing I'm going to talk about is I just watched this thing on Friday on the ID channel about Ted Bundy, and there's just I feel like they just keep making Ted Bundy specials and documentaries. I guess because he is a pretty fascinating um, figure and serial killer. Because I think he's probably one of the most prominent serial killers. He's definitely in the top five serial killers of all time. Kind of a weird dichotomy with Ted Bundy and serial killers in general, because they are being touted as these horrible figures, but they're also oddly being kind of glorified and glamorized, because people, obviously people are really interested in it. So I'm into that true crime serial killer stuff, but I wonder if this is a thing a lot of people deal with, in that because it kind of makes me feel weird, I'm like so interested in it because it is fascinating. I guess I think maybe it's kind of like similar to the idea of like horror movies. It's like cathartic, because it makes you aware of this thing that's out there, but in kind of a safer way. It's kind of like, wow, this is out there, but it's like you're separate from it, but you're also seeing it and you're engaging in it. Um, but there's something to it because it's so prevalent and ubiquitous in pop culture, serial killers and stories about them. And it is funny how people get fascinated with them. And I'm not really fascinated with Ted Bundy, but his story is extremely compelling and interesting. But before I get into him, there's a couple of things. First of all, all right, I want to talk about this guy who shot everyone on the 4th of July parade in Illinois. What a bummer that guy is. It's like, well, I understand you're like crazy. You want to kill people. First of all, he's one of those guys that um, later on after he shoots everyone, everyone's like, oh yeah, like I knew him, and every day he said he was going to shoot everyone, and he had a Facebook page, and he put videos up every day of saying he's planning on murdering everyone on 4th of July. It's just like it's always like I feel like these dudes that do all these mass shootings now and these crazy go on these killing sprees are kind of the opposite of what you used to hear about serial killers. I feel like serial killers used to kind of be on the DL and kind of try and pretend like they weren't crazy, kind of present a normal face to the world. Now they're just kind of putting it all out there that they're crazy. They're basically just telling people, telegraphing over and over that they're crazy. Like they'll put it online. They're like, yeah, hey, I'm going to murder people. And everyone's like, whatever, who cares? And then they're like, I can't believe he killed all those people. I mean, I know he had a Facebook page and YouTube page where he just said he wanted to kill everyone every day and he was flashing guns, but I don't know. I didn't take him seriously. And then, like, when you would hear about serial killers back in the day, they'd be like, yeah, I knew him and he was always really nice. He lived right next door and he never did anything. He just was really polite and, quiet and kept to himself. Um, Now they're never keeping to themselves. They're always like, they have their own YouTube page. I love that they're so crazy, but they're still able to like figure out the technology and have the wherewithal to start their own YouTube page. It's like, why don't you just like channel that into something creative instead of murdering everyone? But I think he had like tattoos on his face. He clearly was crazy, and then he told his dad he was going to murder everyone. And then his dad signed a, helped him get a machine gun. Yeah, that's bad parenting. Just helping your kid get a machine gun, even if they haven't been saying they want to kill everyone. That's probably not a good idea. Like I don't have any kids, but I feel like even the stupidest worst parent would probably be like, yeah, I don't think he's ready for a machine gun. I think he should wait until he's able to get one on his own. I'm not going to help him get a machine gun. Dad, can you help me get something? I need you to sign up. What is it? A machine gun? Sure. Where's the paper? I'll sign that. You're ready for a machine gun. What are you, 14 and crazy and have tattoos on your face? Here you go. Good luck. What are you going to do with that? Oh, nothing. Just, regular machine gun recreational activities that 15-year-olds do. All right. That sounds totally on the up and up. Nothing suspicious there. What the fuck? I can't believe he killed everyone. You can. He told you he was going to kill everyone. Um, but of course, that a lot of thing, big thing people are talking about is, because he's a white guy, he murdered all these people, and the police just kind of took him into custody and didn't shoot him, or and they took him into custody. Police were pretty hands off about taking him in. And then, like, what was it, like a week before that, or I don't know, like in the couple of days around that July 4th shooting, there was some guy, a black guy, who basically just, I guess, wouldn't stop his car in a police chase, and then got out and ran, and they just shot him like 80 times as he was running away. The thing I don't understand about that is, um there's a lot of things. They always shoot these dudes when they're running away in the back, and they seem to always be panicky in that situation, which I don't really understand, because then later they're like, well, I felt really threatened for my life, and it's like, really? Like, you feel threatened for your life when someone's running away from you? Like, if I'm ever in a situation, like if I got into a fight with someone and then they turned around and ran away, I wouldn't feel threatened. I'd feel like, oh, I got out of that situation. So it's so odd. They just keep, who is training the police? They're just horrible. And they all seem like, I mean, they're either just dicks and racist, or they're just terrified of any situation. It's like, that's a big thing that's coming out with the police now. It's like, they just seem so scared to be police officers. Like the Uvalde thing where they were like outside for an hour and a half while the guy had a machine gun. Like, they had machine guns. There was like 20 of them. They're just like, yeah, I was afraid. I didn't want to go in. I was scared. It's like, why? Why were you scared? First of all, there's like 20 of you with machine guns. I feel like I wouldn't even be scared in that situation. And then they're like, yeah, well, we were looking for a key to the door to open the door. Really, for an hour and a half, you're looking for a key? Who the fuck has this key? I don't know. You have a machine gun. I feel like those could probably, break down a door. I feel like that's what machine guns do. Yeah, we needed the key. Oh, cool. All right. But, the more I see this, the more I'm like, I feel like I could have been a cop. I never really thought about it, but, I feel like part of me was like, oh yeah, I'm scared of being a cop, but I'd be scared of getting shot. But apparently that doesn't matter. You can be scared of being shot. And the other thing is, like, they're always like, yeah, I'm so scared. It's like, any job where you have a gun, I don't know. I just feel like immediately, like, the fear shouldn't be that prevalent. I was scared. Well, I mean, it's when they, like, I should be scared. I don't have a gun in situations. But anyway, it's kind of like, I've talked about this before, like, people are always like, the phenomenon of like, how come there's never any, these black or minorities who are mass shooters or do these horrible killing sprees, or black serial killers? And I think I figured out, I think it's because, like, if you were a black or minority, like, you wouldn't ever even be able to get to the serial killing, like, because the police would just pull you over, like, probably on your way to the first murder. Like, you'd be like, I'm really mad, I'm gonna go murder people, and then, like, as you're driving, like, to murder your first person, when you finally decided, the cops pull you over because, like, I don't know, you didn't signal, and then they, like, pull you over, and then they just shoot you. This is a big, shows a disparity between the races, and how white people are just kind of enabled to be serial killers. Ted Bundy and a lot of these guys, they kept getting caught and they would just let them go. I'll get into the Ted Bundy thing, but so like the guy, the 4th of July guy, like, if a black guy, first of all, if he even tried to go to that parade, he would have just been, again, pulled over and probably thrown in jail for, I don't know, just driving. If it was like a 45-mile-per-hour speed zone, like driving like 44 miles per hour, oh, you're too slow, you're gonna go to jail. Fuck, I can't even get to murder people. They're not letting me. That's how racist everyone is. Oh, so this is what I want to say. So, whenever this happens, the right, they never want to talk about guns, or it's never the guns. That's never the issue. It's they always blame it on everything else. The media, oh, there's no one there with a, there's no good guy with the gun, which, the whole Uvalde thing kind of like put that whole theory to rest. Well, it didn't, but it's just kind of like the only thing to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. It's like, really, there were 30 guys with machine guns. They didn't do anything. So I guess it's, you can stop a bad guy with a gun unless they have a really big gun, then you can't. But they always blame video games. It's a big thing that's been going on, since the beginning of video games. Like they're always like, oh, it's video games. They're giving kids these ideas and they're doing, these shooting games. They're just so violent, and it doesn't seem real to them. Like they're, cut off from reality. So they just go do that. They imitate what they see. And, that's not true. I don't really believe that because, first of all, my video games when I was growing up were a lot less advanced and weren't as complex as the video games now. But, a lot of kids, I was really into video games and a lot of kids were, but for the video games we had, I never, I never was in school and then showed up and then like there was a kid who went crazy from video games and was like standing on the roof throwing barrels at everyone in the school, like, oh my God, what's he doing? He's dressed as a monkey and he's throwing barrels at us. These damn video games. Someone get a janitor to hit him with a hammer. No, I never had a story like in like 1986, like, man, I showed up to school and this kid showed up. He was dressed in yellow and he was trying to eat everyone. And first he was grabbing everyone's fruit and eating it, and then he just kept trying to eat everyone. And then luckily he was taken down. There were some ghosts that showed up and they took him down. They killed him. Pac-Man. Those were the video games we grew up, or Pong. I was thinking like people probably don't know the game Pong, but Pong was this early video game. I remember it came out when I was probably like 7 or 6, and it was such a big deal because it was like on your TV. It was a home video game system, and it was just like, even then I feel like I knew it was shit. It was just basically like these two lines like this, and it was like tennis and then like a dot that you would like you'd hit it over, and then you basically just had to like stop this dot. This literally is probably an accurate representation of the game. But I was thinking, like, if you like, I have nephews and stuff who like love video games, and it's like, if I showed my nephews that game, they would just be like, they'd be horrified. They'd just be angry at me. I could tell they would just be like offended. Like if I was like, hey, here's Pong, you want to play? So like, what is this? Get this away from me right now. You're really bumming me out. This is like it would be like considered child abuse now if you gave a kid Pong to play. Like, here, play Pong. Like, what did I do? Am I being punished for something? Like, this was like recreation for us. I think that's why I was outside most of the time as a kid, because it was like the option was staying in and playing Pong. It's like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do this. I'd rather go outside and play. This is another quick thing. I saw, I lived in this like nice area where there's like kind of like a park area as part of like a community. And there's a lot of dogs. And I was seeing like, I just was outside and I saw this dog that was like, I think it was a Maltese. I used to have a Maltese a long time ago. And I was like, oh, that's a really cute Maltese. How old is he? Like 3? And then the woman was like, no, he's 19. And I was like, wow. I was really off. And I was thinking like, it's amazing. Like dogs really, really age well, unless they're like really old and like haggard and maybe not being taken care of well. Just, like the fact that you can make that mistake with a dog, like be off, in terms of dog years, that's, I was off by like, I don't know, 70, 90 years. That wouldn't happen in real, like with humans. I've never had that happen. Like I've never seen a person be like, hey, how are you? What are you, 3 years old? Like, no, I'm 90. Oh, wow, you look good. You look really good for your age. I thought you had just been born. No, I'm actually about to die. I'm like a week away from dying. Wow, you look good. So what, you just stop growing? I guess your breed just doesn't grow after 3. Yeah, we stop growing. Okay, let's get into the Ted Bundy thing. So first of all, like I said, they just keep making these documentaries about Ted Bundy, and I'm always kind of like flipping around. I'm like, oh, another one. Oh God, what's their problem? Then I always end up going, I'll check it out for a little bit. Even and it's funny because it's always just the same story. They always like hit the same points, but it is so fascinating. Like the big points that it always blows my mind. These serial killers from the '70s, where like they just had free reign of the world. Like before they had like DNA, or that they could like test blood and find things, and like cross match it to someone else on file. Like they just had no way to find anyone who did anything. So like they go through how, and the first thing I want to say about Ted Bundy is people are always like, he was so good looking and he was so charming. You would never think that he was this crazy guy and he had these crazy tendencies. And there was nothing, everything about him seemed so normal. But whenever I watch him, he does seem a little loopy. He doesn't seem completely not crazy to me. Like he has something in his eyes. Like he does look a little off. He's not completely like just as normal. Like I don't look when you go, wow, what a normal everyday guy that was. Like he just have kind of like crazy eyes a little bit. And I would almost guarantee you, he was always like picking up women in bars. I guarantee you there was probably something that like a lot of, if a woman kind of, women have like good intuition. And I think he probably met a lot of women who were like, I don't know about this guy. He's a little weird. But I think it was different back then. I think like, without the internet, without social media, you just, you weren't interacting with a lot of people. So like it took you a little while, I think, especially if you were young, if you were a woman who was young, who was just out dating, like, I think it probably took you a little, like, because it's like anything when you're young, it takes you a little while to like figure out that people are weird. But I think he seemed to have a vibe that was a little bit off. Like he was good looking, but he was a little kooky looking too. Ted Bundy knew that they literally had no way to find him. So he was so brazen and emboldened by the lack of the police's ability to find him, that he would just go up to women, like kind of where he lived, and like introduce himself as Ted. Like he would use his real name when he would approach women that he was going to murder. So sometimes he would approach women and then they wouldn't fall for his pickup or whatever, they weren't into it, and then that's kind of how he started to get, they kind of started to find out who he was, because people were being murdered and a lot of them were like, oh, this guy, I recognize the guy, I saw him later. Like I think there was like a woman at a beach and he tried to pick her up and she was like no, and then she saw him later walking away with this other woman, and then later she saw that she was murdered, and she like went to the police. She's like, yeah, that was the guy who I saw him with the woman that got murdered, and he said his name was Ted, and he drove a yellow Bug. So it's just kind of like he's not even thinking to not use his real name, and they still like couldn't find him. They're just like, oh, okay, his name is really Ted, and he has a yellow Bug, and he's murdering women within a 20 block radius of where he lives. Okay, yeah, no, we'll figure. We got nothing. And so then I guess he's just murdering all these people. And then, what's interesting is they keep catching. Oh, so one of the main points though is there's a woman that he tries to kidnap and murder, and she gets away. And I think she's like one of the only ones that ever got away, which is why they first picked him up. And I think they got his first conviction. But it's, he came up with these really elaborate ideas to lure women in, and they're kind of like, I hate to say it, but they're like brilliant ideas, and I could totally see someone falling for it. Like he had the one with her, as he went up to her and he's like, hey, I'm a police officer, and I saw someone trying to break into your car, and and then they go to the car and he's like, oh, well, do you want to like identify him? And then she's like, yeah, and then he goes, like, he's like, we have him across the street in like a store, and then he goes in, he's like, oh, I don't know what happened, I guess my partner left. And then he's like, do you want to go to the station and ID him or file a report? And she's like, all right. And then I think she says that they go to his car, and it's just his car, a regular car, and she's like, oh, do you have a badge? And then he like flashes a badge, and then she just goes with him, and then he tries to handcuff her, and then she gets away somehow. But that's why they were able to get him on that. I think, I don't think they were able to link any of the murders. But so then what's crazy is he he's in jail and he escapes. First of all, he escapes twice, which is fucking insane that you would be able to escape prison twice. I've seen, I just saw the movie Escape at Dannemora, and they escape from jail, and it's like this huge deal. Like they're like, no one's escaped from this jail in 86 years. And like the fact that Ted Bundy was able to do it twice, and I guess that was part of his charm, because one of the times is he's just in the law library. Um, and they just leave him in there, like, because he's like, oh yeah, I'm reading some stuff, and then he just like jumps out the window. So I don't know. They're just like, they don't think to, like, maybe be watching this guy who's basically on trial for murder. Like, oh yeah, he's all right in there. But then I guess they catch him again. And they catch him quick because I guess he's in Colorado and he can't get away because he just goes to the mountains and he has nowhere to go. And then they get him. And then he escapes again because he like loses weight and he like shimmies his way out of the ceiling or something. I guess like jails back then just didn't have great like security systems. I mean, I guess being a criminal back then was just like a fucking dream. Like, but then that time he just goes on, he basically just goes to another state. And again, it's like there's no communication between police stations in like jurisdictions in other states, that he's literally able to just go to like a couple of states over. I think Florida he goes to, which is not that far away. I think he was in Colorado, and then just starts like living, and then of course just can't not murder. It's kind of like, dude, all right, you got out of jail. You're out of jail. No one can find you because literally there's just no way for them to find you. Just like, I don't know, why not just relax and kick back for a little bit? Like, no, he has to, like, that's how crazy he was. He had to like go murder people. So he goes to the sorority house. Kai, this is like a famous thing, and he like just murders. He just beats them in their sleep or whatever. And the only so this is what happens. So then like he gets pulled over just randomly for being in a stolen car, and the police are like, okay, what's your name? Give us your ID. And he's like, I don't have one. He won't give them his name. And so he looks like a little different. It's really interesting to see how he kind of like changes his looks a little, like his hair is kind of combed differently, and he has like a mustache, and I think he has like a scar on his face. I think he did it purposely to kind of like look different. And they take him, they had like this footage from in court, and they're talking to the judge, and they're like, yeah, we don't know who he is, he won't say who he is, so I think we should just let him go. And the judge is like, luckily the judge is not stupid and crazy. And the judge is like, no, you can't just let him go. Like, you can't, people, if you pull someone over for a felony, you can't just be like, oh, you're not going to tell us who you are. All right, we'll let you go. Imagine if like a black guy tried to do that. Like, you pulled a black guy over for doing something, and they're like, who are you? Give us your ID. And he's like, I'm not going to tell you. They'd be like, all right, just let him go. But they were just literally, because Ted Bundy basically was like, I'm not going to tell you my name. They're like, just let him go. We got nothing. And then they finally figure out who he is. I don't know how, but they finally figure it out. And then they realize, it's Ted Bundy and he's escaped from prison. And then I guess that was kind of the end of him. But during that time, they don't even know how many women he got. At least 2 in that Cayo house, and then 2 others that he almost killed. But the only way they get him with that, again, there's like blood everywhere, and just there, but if DNA had been around, his DNA would have been all over the place. But all they had was like a bite mark on one of the women. I guess he like bitten her ass or something, and like they take like dental records of his bite and then compare it to the bite, and apparently it matches, and then I guess that's it. I think he finally admitted on death row all these women that he had murdered. I think there were like 90 or something, because he kind of admits a lot of them. But someone speculated that there just has to be so many more that they never tied to him. So I would say he murdered over like 100 people, and he wasn't. I mean, I don't know. He was like in his 30s when they found him, and this is one thing I've always said about him is if he wasn't this crazy serial killer guy who just had this bloodlust and I don't know, hatred of women, he would have been this like amazing pickup artist guy, because he had these elaborate like approaches that he would use that were like great. Not like the cop one, because that one clearly is like he's trying to kidnap, but he used to do this thing when he would wear like a sling. He'd have his arm in a sling and he would ask women to help him like load a boat or something. And they'd always kind of, I guess because he was kind of charming and he looked, again, it was such a brilliant thing because he looks helpless, because they're kind of like, well, look at this, he's kind of like a good looking young guy, like his shoulders hurt, like he's not gonna be able to do anything. He talks about this a little bit, like I think in like on Death Row in the interview, he talks about he had like a porn addiction. And I don't know, they say that that might not have been completely accurate, that he was just kind of pawning it off on porn, he was blaming it on that. But it is interesting, and there must be something to that. But porn back then was so much tamer than it, like nowadays it's just insane. I don't really watch porn that much, I'm not lying, like that sounds like, oh, I'm not doing it, but like, just because when you go on a porn site, you're like inundated with images that you didn't like voluntarily sign up to see. Like the worst thing image in the world would just automatically be on the homepage, and you're just kind of like, just kind of surprised by it. It's like, I didn't ask to see this, and then all of a sudden you're seeing the most disgusting thing you've ever seen. And because it's, I think people have been desensitized to porn, like they have to up the ante, so it's just like worse and worse and meaner, it just gets meaner and meaner. So I mean, that can't be having a good effect on young people. And it's terrifying how readily available it is. I mean, I've talked about this before, but like when I was a kid, growing up in the 80s, when I was like, first heard about porn, like the only time I had ever seen it was like randomly at someone's house. Someone would have it because their dad had a porn or something. And if you ever wanted to rent one or something, you just had to, it was like, planning a heist on like planning a bank heist. You had to like buy masks, you had to assume other identities, you had to make a bunch of calls. I don't know if that's how bank heists work, but just a lot went into it. You had to like recruit your friends. You had to keep it on the down. You had to find someone who had something to play it on. You had to make sure people were gone, like people's parents were out of town. You know what I mean? It's just, now it's just like, oh yeah, porn. Oh, okay, cool. Right here on, okay. Most of the, like a 9-year-old kid can just be like, what's this? Oh yeah, the worst thing that's ever been filmed. Oh cool, yeah, I'm glad my 9-year-old eyes saw that. And the only security they have is like, they'll have a question like, hey, are you really 18? Like, yes. Okay, fine, you're ready. So that's all I have to say about Ted Bundy. That documentary was interesting, but definitely not the most in-depth one. Like it was all the stuff, all the greatest hits I've heard. And the thing is, like, they always interview the one woman that got away, and that that story I was telling, where he tried, he pretended he was a cop and tried to kidnap her. And I was wondering, like, what it would be like to be that woman, because she talks about she has survivor's guilt, like, why am I the only one that got away? And that does have to be weird, but would have to wear on you. And then, like, it's got to be weird because people are always contacting her to do this interview, so she's probably like, it's probably cool to her because it's like her claim to fame a little bit, but it's also going to be weird. Like, oh, can we interview you about that horrible thing that happened? Like, all right, I guess so. Again, like, yeah, we're doing the 500th documentary about him because apparently everyone just wants to hear this story over and over again. And it's scary. It's like they're kind of playing into his hands, because you know that this is exactly what he wanted. He wanted to just be this kind of celebrated, almost like, yeah, icon celebrity. I don't think he would even be ashamed of it. I think he probably thought it was cool. And they always like cast some like good looking, hot young actor to be him. It's like, oh yeah, it's Zac Efron, cool. They should do something where they cast someone really ugly to play him, so he's like pissed off. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Like this video, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye. Thanks.